Marcus Johnson took a deep breath as he walked up the courthouse steps. The big white building looked even more scary today. He was a black man in his 40s with short gray hair and kind eyes. Today, those eyes showed worry, but also something stronger: determination. People filled the hallway outside courtroom 5. Some were there for their own cases, but many were there to see what would happen to Marcus. They whispered as he walked by. Marcus nodded at familiar faces but kept moving forward. "Good luck in there," said an old woman who often sold vegetables at the community market. Marcus smiled at her, grateful for the support. The courtroom doors were heavy and made a loud noise when Marcus pushed them open. Inside, the room was bigger than he remembered. Rows of wooden benches faced the front where Judge William Harrington would sit. The judge wasn't there yet. Marcus found his spot at the small table on the left side of the room. He put his worn brown briefcase down and took out some papers. His hands shook a little, but he steadied them by taking another deep breath. He had worked as a paralegal for 15 years. He knew courtrooms, but being the one in trouble felt very different. Lisa Chen, Marcus's friend and a local reporter, slipped into a seat in the back row. She gave him a thumbs up. Marcus nodded back. At least someone from the press was here to see what happened. The court officer stood up suddenly. "All rise for the Honorable Judge William Harrington." Everyone stood as a side door opened. Judge Harrington walked in wearing his black robe. His face looked like it was carved from stone. He never smiled. People said he gave the harshest punishments in the county. "Be seated," the judge said in a deep voice. Everyone sat down except Marcus and the young county lawyer, Sam Peterson, who stood at the other table. Judge Harrington looked down at some papers. Case number 47,329, County versus Marcus Johnson. Charges of organizing an illegal gathering, disturbing the peace, and failure to obtain proper permits. He looked up at Marcus with cold eyes. "How do you plead, Mr. Johnson?" Before Marcus could answer, the side door opened again. A woman in an expensive suit walked quickly to Sam Peterson and whispered something in his ear. Peterson looked surprised, then worried. "Your Honor," Peterson said, "the county would like to request a brief recess to review some new information." The judge frowned. "We just began, Mr. Peterson." "What new information?" Peterson looked uncomfortable. "Information about potential conflicts of interest, Your Honor." The courtroom got very quiet. Marcus noticed several people exchange looks. Judge Harrington's face turned slightly red. "Denied," the judge said sharply. "We will proceed as scheduled." He turned back to Marcus. "Your plea, Mr. Johnson." Marcus stood up straight. "Not guilty, Your Honor." The judge wrote something down. "Mr. Johnson, you stand accused of organizing a protest at the Westside Community Center on April 3rd. A protest that blocked traffic, prevented business as usual, and violated 3 county ordinances." "That protest was peaceful and legal, Your Honor," Marcus said. The judge's eyes narrowed. "I did not ask for your opinion, Mr. Johnson. I am stating the facts as presented by the county." Marcus knew then that this would not be a fair fight. Judge Harrington had already decided he was guilty. But Marcus had something the judge didn't know about, something that would change everything in just a few minutes. People in the courtroom could feel the tension growing. Judge Harrington leaned forward, his voice getting louder. "Mr. Johnson, this court takes violations of county ordinances very seriously, especially when those violations seem politically motivated." Marcus stayed calm, even as his heart beat faster. The judge didn't know that Marcus had spent the last 3 days preparing. He didn't know what Marcus had discovered in the county records. And he certainly didn't know what Marcus had in his briefcase. The real battle was about to begin. Judge Harrington tapped his fingers on the wooden desk. The sound made people in the courtroom sit up straight. Everyone knew this wasn't good. When the judge tapped his fingers like that, someone was in trouble. "Let me remind everyone why we are here today," the judge said. His voice was loud and cold. 3 weeks ago, Mr. Johnson led a group of people to block the entrance of the West Side Community Center. This caused many problems. Workers couldn't get in to start the planned demolition. The county lost money, and Mr. Johnson knew what he was doing was wrong. Marcus wanted to speak up, but he waited. He knew the judge wasn't finished. The West Side Community Center is old and unsafe, Judge Harrington continued. The county has decided to replace it with a new shopping center that will bring jobs and money to our town. This is good for everyone. Many people in the courtroom shook their heads. They didn't agree. The community center had been there for over 80 years. It was where people met for parties, classes, and community meetings. For many black families in town, it was an important place. Marcus finally stood up. Your Honor, if I may explain. You may not. Judge Harrington cut him off. You will speak when I tell you to speak, Mr. Johnson. The judge opened a folder and pulled out some papers. I have here the police report from April 3rd. It says you had over 200 people with you. You blocked the entrance with cars and people standing in a line. You handed out flyers that said false things about the new shopping center. Is this true? Before Marcus could answer, the side door opened again. This time, an older woman walked in. She wore a simple dress and carried a large purse. It was Mrs. Washington, the oldest member of their community. She was 85 years old, and everyone respected her. The court officer tried to stop her, but she kept walking until she was right behind Marcus. Mrs. Washington, the judge said, looking surprised. This is not a good time. We are in the middle of a hearing. I know exactly what you're doing, Judge Harrington, Mrs. Washington said. Her voice was thin but strong. You're trying to punish this young man for standing up for what's right. My grandmother helped build that community center with her own hands. And now you want to tear it down for a shopping center that nobody in our neighborhood even wants. The courtroom was completely silent. Nobody ever interrupted Judge Harrington, especially not to criticize him. Mrs. Washington, I have great respect for you, the judge said, his voice softer now. But this is a court of law. Mr. Johnson broke the rules, and he must face the consequences. What about your rules, Judge? Mrs. Washington asked. What about the rule that says a judge can't decide a case where he has money at stake? The judge's face turned red again. That's enough. Officer, please escort Mrs. Washington out. The officer looked uncomfortable but moved toward Mrs. Washington. Marcus quickly reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Your Honor, before Mrs. Washington leaves, I would like to submit this evidence to the court. Marcus's voice was steady now. He held up the folder. These are public records that show you own 15% of Westfield Development Company, the company it will build and own the new shopping center. People in the courtroom gasped. Some stood up to see better. The young county lawyer, Sam Peterson, looked shocked. Judge Harrington's face went from red to white. That information is not relevant to this case. I believe it is very relevant, Your Honor, Marcus said. It explains why you are so eager to punish me and anyone else who stands in the way of that shopping center. You stand to make a lot of money from it. The judge banged his gavel hard. That's enough. This court will take a 15-minute recess. Everyone stay seated. The judge stood up quickly and almost ran to his private door. As he left, Marcus saw something he never expected to see on Judge Harrington's face. Fear. The courtroom buzzed with loud whispers after Judge Harrington rushed out. Court Officer Jenkins stood awkwardly at the front, not sure what to do. He had never seen the judge leave so quickly in his 15 years working there. Order, please, Officer Jenkins finally said, but nobody listened. Everyone was talking about what just happened. Marcus sat down and took a deep breath. Mrs. Washington patted his shoulder and sat in the chair next to him. You did good, son, she said. My Harold would be proud of you. Harold Washington had been a civil rights lawyer in the 1960s. He had taught many young black men and women about the law before he died 10 years ago. Thank you, Mrs. Washington, Marcus said. But this isn't over yet. The judge won't give up easily. Across the room, county lawyer Sam Peterson was on his phone, talking fast and looking worried. He kept looking at Marcus and the folder on the table. Lisa Chen, the reporter, moved to a seat closer to the front. She was writing everything down in her small notebook. This was big news for their small town. "Marcus," Lisa called quietly. "Can I see what's in that folder?" Marcus shook his head. "Not yet, Lisa. Let's see what the judge does first." More people came into the courtroom. Word was spreading fast about what was happening. Marcus saw the mayor's assistant slip in through the back door. Then 2 members of the county board arrived. They sat in the back row, watching everything carefully. 15 minutes passed, but Judge Harrington didn't come back. Then 20 minutes, then 30. Finally, a different door opened, and a woman in a black robe walked in. It was Judge Maria Rodriguez from the next county. Everyone was surprised to see her. "Please be seated," Judge Rodriguez said. "I am taking over this case at the request of Judge Harrington, who has recused himself due to a potential conflict of interest." The crowd whispered again. Marcus sat up straight. This was not what he expected. Judge Rodriguez looked at some papers, then at Marcus. "Mr. Johnson, I have reviewed the charges against you. Before we continue, I would like to see the evidence you were about to present." Marcus stood up and walked forward with his folder. He handed it to the court officer, who gave it to Judge Rodriguez. She opened it and started reading. Her face showed no emotion, but she raised her eyebrows a few times. After a few minutes, she looked up. "Mr. Peterson, are you aware of this information?" The young county lawyer looked uncomfortable. I just learned about it today, Your Honor." "I see." Judge Rodriguez closed the folder. "In light of this information, does the county wish to continue with these charges against Mr. Johnson?" Peterson stood up slowly. He looked like he didn't want to be there. "Your Honor, the county would like to request time to review our position." "Granted," Judge Rodriguez said. "The county has 48 hours to decide whether to proceed. Until then, all charges against Mr. Johnson are suspended." She looked at Marcus. "Mr. Johnson, you are free to go, but I would like to speak with you privately in my chambers, if you don't mind." Marcus nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge stood up. "Court is adjourned until further notice." As people started to leave, Sam Peterson walked over to Marcus. He spoke quietly so others couldn't hear. "You've made some powerful enemies today, Johnson," he said. "Judge Harrington has friends in high places. This isn't over." "I know," Marcus said. "But sometimes you have to stand up, even when it's hard." Peterson almost smiled. "You sound like my law professor." He paused. "Be careful, that's all I'm saying." As Peterson walked away, Mrs. Washington came back to Marcus's side. "What do you think Judge Rodriguez wants to talk about?" she asked. Marcus gathered his papers. "I don't know, but I think we're about to find out something important." Mrs. Washington nodded. "Whatever happens next, remember you have the whole community behind you." Marcus looked around. Many people were waiting for him, giving him encouraging looks and nods. For the first time that day, he felt hopeful. The fight wasn't over, but at least now it might be fair. Judge Rodriguez's office was smaller than Judge Harrington's. It had simple furniture and a big window that looked out at the old oak tree behind the courthouse. Marcus sat in a wooden chair across from the judge's desk. He felt nervous but tried not to show it. "Mr. Johnson," Judge Rodriguez said as she sat down, "what you did today was brave. Not many people would stand up to Judge Harrington like that." Marcus was surprised. He didn't expect the judge to praise him. "Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted a fair hearing." Judge Rodriguez nodded. "And you deserve one. But there's something you should know." She leaned forward. "This isn't just about a community center. There's more to this story." She opened a drawer and pulled out a map. She spread it on her desk so Marcus could see it. It was a map of their town, with colored marks in different places. "Do you know what these red marks are?" she asked. Marcus looked closely. They looked like property lines, all in the black neighborhoods. Exactly, Judge Rodriguez said. All these properties have been bought in the last 2 years by shell companies. Different names, but all owned by the same people. Westfield Development. Marcus's eyes got wide. The same company that wants to build the shopping center. The one Judge Harrington has money in. Yes, and not just the shopping center. They plan to buy up the whole neighborhood, tear down the old houses, and build expensive new ones. They're calling it urban renewal. I call it pushing poor people out of their homes. Marcus sat back in his chair. This was bigger than he thought. So the community center is just the first step. Yes, once that's gone, it's easier to break up the community. People lose their meeting place, their history. Then the developers move in with money, offering to buy houses from people who don't know the land is worth much more. How do you know all this? Marcus asked. Judge Rodriguez smiled a little. I grew up in a neighborhood like yours in Chicago. I saw the same thing happen there. When I heard about this case, I did some digging, found some interesting connections. She pulled another paper from her drawer. Judge Harrington isn't the only one with money in Westfield Development. The mayor's brother-in-law is an investor. So is the head of the county board. Marcus felt a chill. That's why they're all so eager to tear down the center. And why they came after me so hard when I organized the protest. Exactly, Judge Rodriguez said. You became a problem they needed to solve. They thought a big fine would scare you off. Marcus thought about what Sam Peterson had said about making powerful enemies. Now it made more sense. What can I do? Marcus asked. They have money, power, connections. I'm just a paralegal who lives in that neighborhood. Judge Rodriguez looked straight at him. You have something they don't have. Mr. Johnson, you have the truth, and you have a community behind you. She tapped the folder Marcus had brought to court. And now you have evidence. She stood up and walked to the window. I can't tell you what to do. As a judge, I have to be neutral. But as someone who cares about justice, I can tell you this. Sometimes one person standing up can make all the difference. Marcus stood up too. Thank you for telling me this, Your Honor. Just be careful, she said. These people play dirty. They might try to come after you in other ways. As Marcus turned to leave, Judge Rodriguez said, One more thing, Mr. Johnson. There's a reporter from the state newspaper in town. Lisa Chen told her about what happened today. She wants to talk to you. The state newspaper. Marcus was surprised. Their small town rarely made state news. Yes, her name is Denise Watson. She specializes in stories about corruption and land development schemes. Here's her card. Marcus took the small white card. This could change everything. Thank you, Your Honor. As Marcus left the judge's chambers, he felt the weight of what he had learned. The fight for the community center was now much bigger. It was a fight for the whole neighborhood, for people's homes and history. He looked at Denise Watson's card. Maybe it was time to let more people know what was really happening in their small town. When Marcus left the courthouse, a crowd waited for him outside. People from his neighborhood stood on the steps, many holding small signs that said, Save Our Center and Community Not Profit. They cheered when they saw him. Mrs. Washington pushed through the crowd to reach him. What happened in there, Marcus? What did the judge say? Marcus looked around. Too many people could hear them. Let's meet at the community center in 1 hour, he said. I'll tell everyone everything then. As the crowd started to break up, a tall woman with short hair approached Marcus. She wore a blue suit and carried a notebook. Mr. Johnson, I'm Denise Watson from the State Tribune. She showed him a press card. I understand you've had quite a day in court. Marcus recognized the name from the card Judge Rodriguez had given him. Yes, I have. But I can't talk here. Of course, Denise said. Could we meet somewhere private? I've been following stories like this across the state. Your situation fits a pattern I've been investigating for months. Marcus thought for a moment. Come to the West Side Community Center in an hour. But don't tell anyone you're a reporter when you first come in." Denise nodded. "I understand. Thank you." On his way to the community center, Marcus stopped at his small apartment to change clothes and gather some papers. His phone rang. It was his boss of the law firm where he worked as a paralegal. "Marcus, what's going on? I'm hearing all kinds of stories about you taking on Judge Harrington in court today." "It's true, Mr. Bennett," Marcus said. "He was going to fine me $25,000 for the protest at the community center." There was a pause. "Marcus, Judge Harrington is a powerful man, and our firm has cases in his court every month." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Are you saying I should have just paid the fine?" "I'm saying you should have talked to me before you made an enemy of the most powerful judge in the county. The partners are concerned about how this looks for the firm." "Mr. Bennett, he had a conflict of interest. He owns part of the company that wants to tear down our community center." Another pause. "I understand that, but there are ways to handle these things quietly." His voice got softer. "Look, the partners think it might be best if you take some time off. With pay, of course, just until this all blows over." Marcus gripped the phone tightly. "You're suspending me for standing up for what's right. We're giving you paid leave to protect yourself and the firm. Just stay low for a few weeks. This will all be forgotten soon." But Marcus knew this wouldn't be forgotten, and he knew he couldn't stay low. Not now. "I understand, Mr. Bennett. I'll clear out my desk tomorrow." "No need for that. Just take some time, Marcus. We'll talk again in a few weeks." After hanging up, Marcus sat on his couch, thinking. In one day, he had made powerful enemies and now might lose his job. But he had also found new allies and uncovered a plot that threatened his whole community. He couldn't back down now. When Marcus arrived at the community center, it was packed. People sat in chairs, stood against walls, and crowded in doorways. Mrs. Washington had spread the word, and it seemed like half the neighborhood had shown up. Lisa Chen was there with her camera. So was Denise Watson, sitting quietly in the back. Marcus also noticed Sam Peterson, the young county lawyer, standing in a corner trying not to be seen. That was a surprise. As Marcus walked to the front of the room, people patted his back and whispered thanks. He felt both nervous and proud. These were his neighbors, his community. They trusted him to help them fight. "Thank you all for coming," Marcus began. "What happened today in court was just the beginning. I've learned that the plan to tear down our community center is part of something much bigger." He took a deep breath. "They don't just want the center. They want all of it. Our homes, our neighborhood, our history." The room got very quiet. Marcus looked at their faces, worried, angry, scared. He knew he had to give them hope, not just bad news. And he had a plan starting to form in his mind. "But we're not going to let that happen," he said, his voice getting stronger. "Not without a fight." Marcus showed everyone the map Judge Rodriguez had given him. He put it on a big table in the middle of the room so people could gather around it. "These red marks show all the properties Westfield Development has secretly bought in our neighborhood," Marcus explained. "They're using different company names so no one would notice it's all the same people buying everything." People crowded around to look. Many found their streets on the map and gasped when they saw red marks near their homes. "They're trying to buy everything cheap before anyone knows their real plan," Marcus continued. "Then they'll tear it all down and build expensive new houses and stores that none of us can afford." Mrs. Johnson, who owned the small bakery on Oak Street, raised her hand. "But they can't force us to sell our homes and businesses, can they?" "Not directly," Marcus said. "But they have tricks. They buy enough properties to make the neighborhood look run down. They let their buildings fall apart. Then property values drop. They can also get the city to raise taxes or create new rules that make it hard for people to keep their properties." The room filled with angry voices. People were upset and scared. "What can we do?" Someone shouted from the back. "They have all the money and power." Marcus held up his hands for quiet. We have three things they don't have. First, we have the truth. Judge Harrington had to step down today because I showed he owned part of Westfield Development. That's against the law when he's making decisions about their projects. He pointed to Denise Watson, who was taking notes in the back. Second, we have help. This is Denise Watson from the State Tribune newspaper. She's been tracking these development schemes across the state. Denise stood up and faced the crowd. What's happening here has happened in 5 other communities in this state. The same pattern, often the same companies. I've been gathering evidence for a big story. What Marcus found today is the missing piece I needed. People murmured with interest. A story in the state newspaper would bring attention to their fight. And third, Marcus said, we have each other. This community has been here for 80 years. My grandparents lived here. Many of your grandparents built this place. We're not going to let anyone take it from us. The crowd clapped and cheered. For the first time since the meeting started, people looked hopeful. Then a voice spoke from the corner. You also have me. Everyone turned to see Sam Peterson, the young county lawyer, step forward. People went quiet. They remembered him as the lawyer who had tried to prosecute Marcus that morning. Why would you help us? Marcus asked. You work for the county. Sam looked uncomfortable with all eyes on him. I took that job to help people, not to help rich developers push people out of their homes. He pulled some papers from his briefcase. After court today, I did some checking. The county board never properly voted on the community center demolition. They used an emergency procedure that wasn't legal for this situation. He handed the papers to Marcus. This means all permits for demolition are invalid. They can't legally touch this building, at least not yet. The room erupted in cheers. This was the first real good news they had heard. But Mrs. Washington raised her hand. That just buys us time. They'll find another way to get those permits. You're right, Marcus said. This is just the beginning of our fight. He turned to Sam. Are you sure you want to help us? You could lose your job. Sam smiled a little. Maybe. But I went to law school to fight for justice, not to help bullies. Marcus nodded with respect. He understood that feeling. So what's our next step? Lisa Chen asked, her reporter's notebook ready. Marcus looked around the room at all the faces watching him. They were counting on him to lead this fight. We need to do 3 things, he said. First, we tell our story to everyone who will listen. Denise will help with that. Denise nodded. My editor has already approved a front-page story for Sunday's paper. Second, Marcus continued, we need to look at all the properties on this map and warn the owners about what's happening. Knowledge is power. And third, he said, his voice getting stronger, we need to be at the county board meeting tomorrow night. All of us. They need to see our faces and hear our voices. They need to know we're not going away. The crowd clapped and started talking excitedly. People were already making signs for the county meeting. Hope was spreading through the room. But Marcus noticed a man slip out the side door. He recognized him as Mayor Taylor's assistant. The word would soon reach the people behind this scheme. Their fight was just beginning, and the other side now knew they were coming. The next morning, Marcus woke up early. He had barely slept. His phone kept ringing with calls and messages from neighbors, reporters, and even people from other towns who had heard about what happened in court. He made coffee and turned on the local news. His heart jumped when he saw Judge Harrington's face on the screen. I have done nothing wrong, the judge was saying to a group of reporters outside his big house. Mr. Johnson is making false claims about me and my investments. I stepped down from his case only to avoid any appearance of conflict. The news then showed Mayor Taylor in his office. This is all a misunderstanding, the mayor said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The West Side Community Center project is good for everyone. It will bring jobs and growth to an area that needs both. Some people just don't like change. Marcus turned off the TV and shook his head. They were trying to control the story. But he knew that would get harder after Denise's article came out on Sunday. His phone rang again. It was a number he didn't know. "Hello, Mr. Johnson. This is Robert Westfield." The voice was deep and smooth. Marcus sat up straight. Robert Westfield was the owner of Westfield Development, the company behind all of this. "How did you get my number, Mr. Westfield?" The man laughed. "I have many friends in this town, Mr. Johnson. Finding a phone number is very easy." "What do you want?" Marcus asked. "I want to meet with you, just the two of us. I think we can work something out that makes everyone happy." Marcus didn't trust this at all. "Anything you want to say to me, you can say in front of the whole community. I don't think you understand how these things work." Westfield's voice got colder. "I'm trying to be reasonable. Not everyone would be so nice after what you did yesterday." "Is that a threat?" Marcus asked. "Of course not. It's an opportunity. I'm offering you a chance to do well for yourself while also helping your community. We could set up a nice fund for community programs, and there could be a good job for someone with your skills in my company." Now Marcus understood. "You're trying to buy me off." "I'm trying to find a win-win solution," Westfield said. "Think about it. I'll be at the Golden Cafe at noon today. Come alone if you're interested in helping your community the smart way." The call ended. Marcus sat still for a long time, thinking. Robert Westfield was offering him money and a job. All he had to do was stop fighting and convince others to do the same. For a moment, he thought about his bills, his small apartment, and the job he might lose. Then he thought about Mrs. Washington and all the others who were counting on him. He thought about his grandparents who had helped build this community when black families weren't welcome in other parts of town. He picked up his phone and called Sam Peterson. "Sam, I just got a call from Robert Westfield. He wants to meet with me today to offer me a deal." "Don't go," Sam said quickly. "It's probably a trap. They might record you saying something they can use against you." "I wasn't planning to go," Marcus said. "But this shows they're worried. They wouldn't try to buy me off if they weren't scared of what we're doing." "That's true," Sam agreed. "By the way, I've been looking at those property records all night. There's something strange about some of these land deals. I think they may have broken some laws to get these properties." "That could be important," Marcus said. "Can you bring what you found to the community center this afternoon? We're meeting at 3 to get ready for the county board meeting tonight." "I'll be there," Sam promised. "And Marcus, be careful today. These people play dirty when they're desperate." After he hung up, Marcus looked out his window at the neighborhood he loved. The old oak trees along the street. The small houses with their front porches where people sat in the evenings. The corner store where everyone knew your name. It wasn't fancy or perfect, but it was home, and it was worth fighting for. He grabbed his keys and headed out. There was much to do before the big county board meeting tonight, and now he knew the developers were getting desperate, which meant things might get even harder. But for the first time, Marcus truly believed they had a chance to win. The county meeting room was already full an hour before the meeting was set to start. People from the West Side neighborhood came early, wearing their Save Our Community shirts that Lisa Chen had helped make that afternoon. They sat together on one side of the room. On the other side sat men in business suits and a few people Marcus didn't recognize. He guessed they worked for Westfield Development. Robert Westfield himself sat in the front row, looking calm and sure of himself. Marcus felt nervous as more people kept arriving. Soon people were standing along the walls and in the doorway. He had never seen so many people at a county board meeting. Sam Peterson rushed in, carrying a thick folder. He looked excited and worried at the same time. He sat next to Marcus. "I found something big," Sam whispered. "Really big." Before he could explain, the county board members walked in. There were 7 of them, led by Chairman Wilson, a tall man with white hair who had been in charge for over 20 years. They looked surprised by the large crowd. "Well," Chairman Wilson said as he sat down, "quite a turnout tonight. We'll try to get through our regular agenda quickly so we can get to the item I'm sure you're all here for, the West Side Development Project." For the next hour, the board discussed boring things like road repairs and park budgets. Marcus could tell they were hoping people would get tired and leave before they got to the community center issue. But no one left. People just sat quietly, waiting. Finally, Chairman Wilson said, "Now we come to the West Side Development Project update." A man in a gray suit stood up and went to the front. He showed pictures of the planned shopping center on a big screen. Phase 1 involves removing the old community center and building a modern shopping complex that will create 50 new jobs, he said. He didn't mention that those jobs would be mostly low-paying store work, or that the community center provided services to hundreds of people every week. Phase 2 and 3 will follow over the next 5 years, he continued, showing more pictures of fancy buildings. The entire area will be transformed into a vibrant, upscale neighborhood. Mrs. Washington, sitting next to Marcus, whispered, "He means a neighborhood none of us can afford to live in." When the man finished, Chairman Wilson said, "Thank you for that update. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this matter?" Marcus stood up immediately. He walked to the front of the room, feeling everyone watching him. This wasn't a courtroom, but it felt just as important. "My name is Marcus Johnson. I've lived in the West Side neighborhood all my life. I'm here because this plan isn't what it seems." He took out the map Judge Rodriguez had given him. "This map shows properties secretly bought by Westfield Development throughout our neighborhood. Their plan isn't just about a shopping center. It's about taking over the entire community, forcing people out of their homes, and replacing us with wealthy newcomers." Robert Westfield stood up. "This is ridiculous. We're bringing improvement to a rundown area. If property values go up, that helps everyone." "It only helps people who can afford to stay," Marcus replied. "And speaking of property values, Mr. Peterson has discovered something interesting about how you've been buying land." Sam stepped forward with his folder. "I work for the county legal department, and I've reviewed the property records for the West Side area. At least 12 properties were purchased through tax sales that weren't properly advertised as required by law. The original owners weren't properly notified. They were losing their properties." The room erupted in noise. People started talking all at once. Chairman Wilson banged his gavel loudly. "Order. We will have order," he shouted. Just then, a woman stood up from the crowd. Marcus recognized her as Mrs. Taylor, who had lost her family home last year after her husband died. "That's what happened to my house," she cried. "I never got any notices about back taxes until they said it was too late. Then some company I never heard of owned my home." More people stood up with similar stories. The room got louder. Robert Westfield's face turned red. He whispered something to his lawyer. Chairman Wilson kept banging his gavel. "This meeting will come to order or I will clear the room." When it was finally quiet, Marcus spoke again. "We're not against progress or development, but we are against pushing people out of their homes and erasing our history. We want development that includes us, not replaces us." The crowd applauded loudly. Marcus looked around and saw something he hadn't expected. Many people from other parts of town were nodding and clapping too. This wasn't just the West Side neighborhood anymore. Other people were starting to care about what was happening. And for the first time, Marcus saw fear on Robert Westfield's face. 3 months later, Marcus stood on the steps of the newly painted West Side Community Center. The spring sun felt warm on his face as he watched people arrive for the reopening celebration. So much had changed since that county board meeting. The morning after the meeting, Denise Watson's story had appeared in the State Tribune with the headline, "Justice for Sale: How Developers and Officials Schemed to Take Over Historic Black Neighborhood." The story included everything: Judge Harrington's conflict of interest, the illegal property purchases, and the secret plan to buy up the whole neighborhood. Other newspapers picked up the story. Then TV news. Soon the state attorney general's office started an investigation. Judge Harrington announced his early retirement 2 weeks later. Chairman Wilson and 2 other county board members also stepped down when their connections to Westfield Development were revealed. Robert Westfield tried to fight back with lawyers and press statements, but when the Attorney General's investigation found evidence of fraud in the property deals, even his money couldn't help him. Last week, he had been charged with fraud, bribery, and corruption. His company was ordered to return 12 properties to their original owners, including Mrs. Taylor's family home. "Quite a crowd," said a voice beside Marcus. It was Sam Peterson, wearing jeans and a t-shirt instead of his usual suit. After testifying about what he found in the property records, Sam had been fired from his county job. But he didn't stay unemployed for long. A big law firm in the city that specialized in fighting for people's rights had hired him immediately. "It's good to see people happy again," Marcus said. "For a while there, I thought we might lose everything." "You never gave up," Sam said. "That's why we won." Mrs. Washington came up the steps slowly, leaning on her cane. "My goodness, look at all these people. I haven't seen the center this full since the 1980s. Inside, the community center looked better than it had in years. After the scandal broke, a local business group had donated money for repairs. Young people from the neighborhood had painted the walls. A computer company had given new computers for the center's learning program. The main hall was filled with people from all parts of town. On one wall hung pictures showing the history of the West Side neighborhood, old black and white photos of the original families who had built homes here, pictures of civil rights marches, community celebrations, and sports teams. Marcus's favorite was a newspaper photo from 1968 showing Mrs. Washington's husband, Harold, standing on these same steps after winning a case that stopped an earlier attempt to take over the neighborhood. "Like grandfather, like grandson," Mrs. Washington said, following Marcus's gaze to the photo. "Harold would be so proud of you." "I'm not his grandson," Marcus reminded her gently. "Family isn't always blood," she said, patting his hand. "It's who stands with you when the hard times come." Lisa Chen waved from across the room where she was taking pictures for her newspaper. Her stories about the community's fight had won her a journalism award. Next to her stood Denise Watson, who had been nominated for an even bigger prize for her investigation. The new mayor, Angela Rivera, walked over to Marcus. She had been elected in a special election after the previous mayor resigned in the scandal. The city council approved the new protection plan for historic neighborhoods, she told him. "No more sneaky development schemes. If someone wants to build here now, they have to work with the community, not against it." Marcus nodded. "That's all we ever wanted, a chance to have a say in what happens to our homes." Judge Rodriguez appeared at the door, smiling as she looked around. She had been appointed to replace Judge Harrington. She walked over to Marcus. "Congratulations," she said. "You've done something remarkable here." "I didn't do it alone," Marcus replied. "The whole community stood together." The judge smiled. "Yes, but it started with you. One person who wasn't afraid to stand up, even when facing a $25,000 fine, and the most powerful judge in the county." Marcus thought back to that day in court when Judge Harrington had tried to silence him with that impossible fine. It seemed so long ago now. As he looked around at the happy faces, the repaired community center, and the neighborhood that would remain home for the people who had always lived there, Marcus realized something important. The judge had tried to use money and power to silence him, but Marcus had something stronger, the truth and a community that stood together. And in the end, that had made all the difference.